right, what we're talking about today are rates. And we talked a little bit about rates this morning when we were talking about how much one candy per bag costs. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about why that's a rate. Let's start with our definition. A rate is a comparison of two numbers with different units. And what that means is we're comparing like candy to dollars. Some common rates I'm going to write are miles per hour, which is also MPH, miles per hour. We could do something like 3 cookies for $1. We could do distance over time. Some of you talk about WPM when you're playing Nitro Type, which is how many words per minute. This line, or this line, which is our fraction line, is we use the word per. And when we were talking about ratios, that line also meant 2, like 1 to 2, 1 to 4. This time in rates, we're going to use it as per or in, like I'm going to say 4 miles in 1 hour. Okay, whatever it is. That's a rate. A unit rate compares a quantity to 1 unit, and that's where you try to get your bottom number to 1. 1 hour, $1, 1 minute, one of something. So we use rates to figure out different quantities in time, different amounts, and again, all we're doing is using division and multiplication, much like we did with ratios. So let's do some example problems. Example A. Sarah earns $23 in 1 hour. And we would write that as 23 in 1 hour. How much does she make in? So here we can fill in with any amount of time. How much does she make in half an hour? How much does she make in 15 minutes? How much does she make in 5 hours? How much does she make in 3 days if she works 24 hours a day? There are all kinds of questions that we could answer by knowing what the unit rate is. So I'm going to do our example problem with 5 hours, and I'm going to show you how to make it proportional. And proportional means when one side matches the other. They're in kind of like a ratio. So if I have $23 here and 1 hour here, I want to know how much money in 5 hours. And just like we did with our ratios, I look at what do I do to 1 hour to get 5 hours. Again, it has to be with multiplication or division, not addition and subtraction. Because when we do algebra or when we do pre-algebra, it's always about relationships between multiplication and division, less about addition and subtraction. So, what do I do to 1 to get 5? I hope you said multiply by 5. What we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So, 23 times 5 gives us how much money she makes in 5 hours. Let's do another sample. Nick fills 24 bottles in 8 minutes. What is the rate he fills bottles? So what this question is asking is the rate. It wants you to find the unit rate. And if the unit rate, if we do 24 bottles in or per 8 minutes, what it's asking us to do is find 1 minute. So what do I do to the 8 to get 1? Divide by 8. Have to do the same thing to the top. Divide by 8. So how many bottles does he fill per minute? 3 bottles. I gotta flip my page because I'm out of paper. All right. When we're talking about money, sometimes the questions are how much per pound, per ounce, per gallon, how much for 1. And this is kind of what we talked about this morning with our candy problem. When you always write it, the money is always on top. It's always the first one. So if I say I have 80 cups for $8, I don't know what it is we're buying, or $7 for 75 cups, it's always money first. So I would write it as $8 for 80 cups equals, I should write cups here, how much for 1 cup? Or $7 for 75 cups, how much for 1 cup? Okay, so let's figure it out. Let's do 8, because 8 is our top number. It goes into the house. Remember, top dog in the house. 80 goes on the outside. 80 does not go into 8. I moved my decimal place straight up. 80 does go into 80 once. 80 goes into 0, 0, and I'm done. So we know that it's 10 cents for 1 cup. If I do 75 into $7, I know 75 does not go into 7. I also know it does not go into 70. So I'm going to try and figure out how many times 75 goes into 70. Well, I know 75 times 10 is 750. So I want a number that's lower. So I'm going to try 75 times 9 and see what that gives me. It gives me 675. So I'm going to use 9 here. And I'm going to need to know if I'm going to have to round this 9 to 10 cents or if I'm going to keep it rounded down to 9 cents. So I'm going to go one more and go to my thousandths place in order to know where to put my hundredths place. How many times does 75 go into 250? So I'm going to try 4. That's 300. That's too much. So 75 times 3 gives me 225. And I'm just going to stop my division there because I know this 3 keeps it at 9 cents. So 10 cents a cup here if I spend $8 for 80 cups, 9 cents per cup if I spend $7 for 75 cups. Your parents are probably always doing this sort of math when they go to the grocery store to find what the best deal is. I know that when I was in school, my mom wouldn't let me buy anything unless I figured out what the price was, or if it was going to go on sale, I had to figure out what the sale price was. So I was always using these kinds of problems in order to figure out if we could afford it. What was the most economical? Okay, so here is your to-do. Please write the problem and show your work. I'm sad that I have to say it, but I know some of you forget. Even though we're in the 24th week of school. A car traveled a distance of 120 miles in 2 hours. And even if you can do the math in your head, I would really like for you to write it out the way that I showed you how to do it. What's the speed of the car in miles per hour? So you're looking for 1 hour. So set it up, show that you know that it is an equal ratio, equal proportion, that it's equal, just like we did up here. Show me what you did and how you know, because the problems will get more difficult. And we'll talk about that when you come in tomorrow.